One of my favorite philosopher theologians is a guy by the name of Matt Morginsky. Matt Morginsky, otherwise known as the lead singer of the OC Supertones, he sang, or else rapped, and I will not rap it for you here this morning, these words more than 2 decades ago. Man, I feel old. Okay, so hear these words from Matt Morginsky. Down, down, down. I really want to rap real bad. I'm not going to do it. Yeah, a white, bald guy from Orange County, California, rapping to ska music. So you can picture that however you want to. So down, down, down. That's the way we're traveling. Our social fabric unravels, but who pulled the string? Philosophers, politicians, or the school teachers? Game of life and death, and we're sitting on the bleachers. What happened to our voice? What happened to our influence? Tell me who will listen to uneducated congregants, and why should they, when all we have to say is bumper sticker doctrine and cute catchphrases? Does this amaze us that no one will take us seriously? We talk big and then we sit in atrophy. Man, oof. Apathy. They make comedy of our hypocrisy, unaware of true biblical philosophy, so we gotta watch what we do and what they see, because we represent Christ plus Christianity. And the chorus comes and it's great. I want to sing it for you all. Go look it up. It's called Escape from Reason. It's really good listening on your way home. I have belted out these lyrics for more than 20 years, and I've been doing it recently with my kids, which has been really great. It's been in me since high school. Now, for me, Matt Morginsky created, and this is specifically for me, the Young Restless Reformed movement. Okay, I had no idea what that was maybe until about 10 years ago, but he created this in me. And now, if you don't know about this historical era in the life of the church, basically about 20 to 25 years ago, there was a spirit of discontentment with bumper sticker doctrine and cute catchphrases. That's a summary of the Young, Restless, and Reform movement. There was good reason in the late 90s and the early 2000s for this discontentment. A lot of people like me wanted to tear down all of the Christian refrigerator magnets with Bible verses taken out of context off the refrigerator. And Matt Morginsky was the patron saint of tearing down those magnets. Another not necessarily a saint, but another prophet. They'll know us by the t-shirts that we wear. Another way to say it, in a little folk tune. So for the last 20 years, my generation has ripped off all of our purity rings and replaced them with smartphones. We've cut off our WWJD bracelets, and we've published countless books of liturgies about lament. Another way to say this, and this is obviously a little bit hyperbolic. All of this is a little bit hyperbolic. As with any generational statement, we traded kitschy optimism that can be sort of plastered onto a refrigerator for digital anxiety. That's maybe one way to talk about the shift. So here's the question I've been asking really specifically this week, but for a while. Are these the only two options? Are we stuck in this pendulum swing from naive positivity to endless depression? Is that what we have to do every generation? Is that what people are stuck in forever? St. Paul's letter to the Philippians is ground zero for refrigerator magnets. It is the gold standard of refrigerator magnets. So here's a few of them. To live is Christ, and to die is gain. There's one. Work out your own salvation with fear and trembling. You don't put that one on the refrigerator, but you know it, okay? I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And our New Testament lesson at the beginning of chapter 4, and this is right at the end, so this is the beginning of the conclusion to this letter, full of many more popular verses, best-selling bumper stickers all over the place. In verse 4, we just heard this. Rejoice in the Lord always. And we all remember this verse because he says, again, I will say, rejoice, right? He repeats it so that we don't forget the imperative twice. And in verse 6, a couple verses later, do not be anxious about anything. Wow. I love that imperative. But in everything. So don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, by prayer and supplication with thanksgiving, let your requests be made known to God. Verse 8, near the end of our reading, whatever is true, whatever is honorable, whatever is just, whatever is pure, whatever is lovely, whatever is commendable, if there is any excellence, if there is anything worthy of praise, think about these things. Now that one probably wasn't on a bumper sticker. It's too long, but this is in our minds. It's in our imaginations. Is this collection of concluding exhortations, it's a long list of imperatives in our reading this morning, is it pie in the sky, naive optimism? Is that what the Apostle Paul is commending for us this morning? Rejoice in the Lord, and again I say, rejoice. Don't be anxious about anything, and think about a bunch of good Christian things, and then everything will be better. Is that what he's saying? You could probably tell from my tone of voice, I don't think that's what he's saying. You can hear even the pessimism in my voice, because that's where I'm at. I am in that generational shift. That's the water that I swim in. That's the air that I breathe. In our information overloaded and our social media depressed generation, no wonder. And I need God's help. So this morning, the Kyrie, Lord have mercy upon us, Christ have mercy upon us. I want that to be something that we hear as good news here this morning. He sees us. It doesn't matter what generation you're in. Even if you have no idea what generation you're in, the only reason I'm kind of aware of it is because I was reading about generation stuff a little bit this week, but it doesn't really matter. Lord has to have mercy upon us this morning, and I hope you hear that all over what I'm saying. Today is Gaudete Sunday. So if you want to sound Anglican and confuse people with how you talk about you going to church, you can say, I went to church on, not only is it not Christmas, but it's Gaudete Sunday. And Gaudete is just Latin for rejoice. It's Rejoice Sunday. We light a pink candle, and I know it's weird. It's the third one, and it feels like it shouldn't be the third one, but it's the third one, okay? So we light a pink candle instead of violet, and this is representing in color what this Sunday is about. We've heard a lot of texts over the last couple weeks, and even this morning in our gospel reading, about judgment, about Jesus the King coming in as judge that John the Baptist proclaimed. But this Sunday, and you might have seen this as well in Zephaniah, in the Psalm, in Philippians chapter 4, there is a lightening, and it's represented in color. There's a lightening of the mood in the midst of Advent, in the midst of a little bit of a heavy preparation season. There's joy. There's Gaudete Sunday. Psalm 85, we just said this responsively this morning in verse 6. Will you not turn again and quicken us, that your people may rejoice in you? This is the song to the Lord. And if you've been in any of our evening prayers, and I hope you'll come tonight to evening prayer, show us your mercy, O Lord, and grant us your salvation. This is right at the heart of this psalm. The joy of the gospel, it was present, hopefully, in the first 2 weeks of Advent and every Sunday that we gather. But in this Sunday, we remember and we pay a special attention to the easy yoke of Jesus, the easy burden of Jesus that breaks into what feels like the judgment season of Advent, and it lightens us. It's meant to lighten us so that even in the midst of judgment, even in the midst of cold and dark and a miserable, rainy, cold morning, Gaudete, rejoice. Man, I wish it were that easy. I wish it were that easy. There are two concepts, one being rejoice, but another one that come together all over the place in Paul's letter to the Philippians and in our text. And this is, remember again, this is a prison epistle. The Apostle Paul is writing to the church at Philippi because he is in chains and he longs to be with the people. So he is in prison, and he combines together two ideas that come together in a lot of different ways throughout this letter. There's rejoicing and anxiety. We heard this in our few first verses this morning. Rejoice in the Lord and don't be anxious. Don't be anxious. In other places, it's joy and concern. Another way of saying the same thing. Or else praise and suffering. These ideas are coming together. So is the generational pendulum swing from God Bless America, Land That I Love in the 1990s, where we sang it at every baseball game and in schools, to what today social psychologist Jonathan Haidt calls the anxious generation? So God Bless America has turned into anxiety everywhere. Are we stuck? Are we stuck? Or does Gaudete Sunday have something to say to us in the midst of our anxiety, in the midst of our darkness? Soren Kierkegaard puts it like this in his book, The Concept of Anxiety. He says, "No grand inquisitor has such dreadful torments in readiness as anxiety. No secret agent knows as cunningly as anxiety how to attack his suspect in his weakest moment or to make alluring the trap in which he will be caught. No discerning judge understands how to interrogate and examine the accused as does anxiety, which never lets the accused escape, neither through amusement, nor by noise, nor doing work, neither by day or by night." Man, 400 years ago, not a lot has changed. Anxiety knows exactly how to get to us and torment us, and so thus the Apostle Paul strongly commands to the church in Corinth and to us this morning, don't be anxious about anything. Again, I wish it were that easy. So how can the imprisoned Apostle Paul make such a statement? How can the one who is in chains, who is separate from all the ones that he loved, what is his secret that he talks about here at the end of the letter, just after our text, of facing plenty and facing hunger? Doesn't matter what day of the week what side of the bed he woke up on, of facing abundance or need. What is the secret? What is that secret that he writes about? He tells the Philippians in many different ways to imitate me, this guy in prison, and he sends Timothy as his own son, as if it's from his son from the Father, as an example, and he commends Epaphroditus among others as a model. He looks to his true companions, to strong women in the faith who love the Lord, and to Clement, and to all the saints. He says, imitate them, those who practice my way of life. What is it? What is it? He says, keep your eyes on those who walk according to the example you have in us. What is that way? What is the secret key? I want to know. I want to know how to not be anxious about anything. It's almost impossible to avoid sounding like a refrigerator magnet this morning, but it's true. And my pessimistic generational outlook has to hear this morning. Here's the point. And this is from start to finish in this letter, but very specifically in our text. It's rejoice, praise, rejoice, find your joy in, rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice in the Lord. gaudete in the Lord. And just in case you didn't hear this imperative the other 9 times, I've written it in this letter. Again, I say, gaudete, rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. In other words, look at the Lord Jesus. Consider yourself to be found not just sort of rescued by Him, but you are in Him. This is where you are. You are found in Him, not having anything apart from Him, but everything in Him. So you don't have anything apart from Him, but because you're in Him, you have everything. And then rejoice, He calls us to do. Rejoice. Stop looking at your chains. Stop worrying about all of the possibilities. The worst thing to ever have happened in all of human history, Christ and Him crucified, has already happened. It's already happened. Rejoice. Rejoice in the Lord. Rejoice and imagine yourself to be in Him. Rejoice in Him. Look to Jesus and rejoice, because He swallowed up death. He wasn't anxious about possibilities. He wasn't anxious about what might happen, about everything outside Himself like you and I are. Every anxiety that we have is outside of us. It's an answer to the what if, or what now, or what's coming next. Every choice at our fingertips. Anxiety. Every choice. Anxiety. Every other possibility. Happiness increases the more brands they put on the shelf. It decreases the more brands they put on the shelf at the grocery store. Good or bad, just possibilities, endless possibilities. Focused on those, it torments us. This is what you and I do, perhaps more acutely and more repetitiously and more liturgically today more than ever. We look at the future, we look at the past, we look at our screens and all the choices, every possibility, and it doesn't even matter if it's good things or bad things. All the openness, all the uncertainty around us makes us anxious, more and more anxious. We cannot escape anxiety through, Kierkegaard wrote 400 years ago, amusement, entertainment. We think that we can do that. We can just amuse ourselves to death, or by noise, by distraction, or even by work, good work, the Lord's work, maybe even a more dangerous thing to focus on all the time. And like hot coffee, anxiety outside of us, it's in front of us with all the possibilities and all of the choices. It scalds us as it spills over us. It's like hot coffee. Anytime it's outside of us, if it touches us, it hurts us. But here's the reality of the good news, and I think this is all over the letter. Jesus wasn't anxious like us. Now, Jesus was anxious. The gospel is pretty clear about this. The gospel writers tell us that Jesus was anxious unto death, even. He was so anxious that He sweat blood. Okay? But He wasn't anxious because of external circumstances or because of uncertainty about the future. He knew everything that was to come. The fullness of anxiety that He experienced, it wasn't from outside Himself. It was, He had taken it fully into Himself. Like hot coffee or hot cocoa, that when you drink it fully and it's inside of you, it warms you. You pour it on your outside, it burns you. Jesus took every ounce of anxiety, every hope, every fear, every mountain, every valley, every possibility. He holds it all together in Himself for us. He counted the cost. He drank to the dregs every last drop of condemnation reserved for us, so that we don't have to be scalded anymore. And he says, the Apostle Paul, and I think this is one way of describing what he says in many different ways throughout this letter, rejoice with your eyes fixed on this one. Rejoice in the Lord again and again. And with this exhortation again and again in different ways, Paul pairs this rejoicing with an appeal to consider your anxiety. In our text, it's don't be anxious about anything. Don't be anxious about anything. And that leads us to bringing all of our anxieties, inside or outside, bringing them to the Lord. Bring all of your supplications to Him. All those things that you feel inside and out, bring them to the Lord. But what does He mean by this? He says, don't be anxious about anything. Well, Jesus was anxious about something. Was Jesus disobedient to this command? No, not at all. And it wasn't easy. It wasn't easy for the imprisoned Apostle Paul to say this. So what's his secret? Chapter 2 and verse 19, he says, I hope to send Timothy, who is like my son to you, so that I might have joy. There's that word again, that I might have joy in prison. Why? Why would Paul have joy in the midst of chains? He says, because like me, my son Timothy has genuine concern, not for all the possibilities, not for whether he has a great name, whether he has success or failure in ministry, not all that. No, I'm sending Timothy, and this is my joy. I'm sending Timothy, my son, to you because he has genuine concern for you. For you. Not for glorification or persecution, not for highs or lows or choices or anything like that. His mind and his heart is fixed on the Lord, and that is manifest in his desire and his concern for those around him. Chapter 2 and verse 28, I am more eager to send him, and this is another minister of the gospel, not only so that I would have joy in prison, Paul says, but so that you may rejoice in seeing him. You may rejoice in seeing him. And then Paul says that when you see him, when this messenger that I send to increase your joy, when you see him, then I will be less anxious, Paul says, in prison. Even I, who don't get to see that reunion, it will decrease my anxiety, not for possibilities, but for you. In chapter 4 and verse 10, directly after our reading, Paul says again, I rejoiced, what? In the Lord. And this time he says, in the Lord greatly. I rejoiced in the Lord greatly. Why? That now at length you have revived your concern for me. You have, in other words, shifted your concerns to from what you will eat and what you will drink and what you will wear and all the externals of this life. All of the highs and all the lows, all the possibilities, all the choices. You stop fixing your mind on those things and you have revived your concern for me. Don't be anxious. Be anxious. Be anxious for others. I rejoice in the Lord because of your concern for me, he says, and I rejoice that your concern for me has been revived. You are imitating me. So here's the call of the gospel on Gaudete Sunday. Rejoice not in good circumstances. Don't do it. Now, you can. You can celebrate on Christmas morning, okay? You can do that. You really can. But all the choices and all the possibilities and all the unknowns, that's not why we're called to rejoice in this letter. Rejoice not in the possibility or even the hope of future rewards in heaven, even. Rejoice in the Lord, in Him, in the person of Jesus Christ. And the second commandment is like it here in this letter. It's very much like it. Don't be anxious about success. Don't be anxious about your failures. Don't be anxious about what you will buy or what you will eat or how many likes and comments you have or about being informed or about everything all the time. You hear the liturgy of our day. No wonder we're the anxious generation. Choice upon choice upon choice, pleasure upon pleasure upon pleasure, all around us all the time, at our fingertips all the time. Don't rejoice in this. Rejoice in the Lord. Don't be anxious about all of these things, whether good or bad, these possibilities, but revive your concern for people. Revive your concern for those who are right around you. Look at people face to face, and even if you're using the medium of writing a letter, so writing a text message to a friend on your phone, do it face to face. You hear that? He's writing a letter, and his joy is being renewed. So there's nothing wrong with the technology. There's nothing wrong with the phone. It's that we are so anxious because we fixate upon everything at our fingertips all the time. And so the Apostle Paul calls us to rejoice in the Lord and renew our concern and our anxiety, not for possibilities, but for people. Be genuinely concerned for others. Consider others more highly than yourselves, and all the other things he says over and over again in this letter. One of my favorite saints, he wrote a letter to his friend, Arthur Greeves, C.S. Lewis, addressing his anxiety, addressing stress that he had. And this is what Lewis said to him. The first thing, when one is being worried as to whether one will have to have an operation, or whether one is a literary failure or a literary success, it doesn't matter the possibility. Lewis says, put that question, put the possibility of the eventual high or the eventual low, put the question out of mind. Otherwise, your thoughts merely go round and round a wearisome circle, now hopeful, now despondent, then hopeful again. This is the concept of anxiety from outside. And so the Lord Jesus takes that and bears that. He's not afraid or fearful. And He redeems us and He holds us. And we can rejoice in the Lord in that place, in union with Him. Our security is in Him. All the possibilities in our future is found in Him. And we can be renewed then in our concern for others. Lewis says, that way of anxiety outside of us, of endless choices, makes us despondent. It makes us hopeful and despondent and then hopeful again. That way madness lies. Do not be anxious about anything. Revive your love for the Lord and revive your concern for others. Rejoice in the Lord. He bore our shame on the tree. This is Gaudete Sunday. Only He crushes the terror of possibility with the power of His indestructible life. So Gaudete, rejoice, all ye anxious, this Advent. Don't be anxious about stuff, whether you have it or you won't have it, whether you'll get what's on your wish list or not. Maybe put down the phone, or else pick up the phone and send a message, a word towards a friend. Or put it away and go meet them face to face, better yet. Stop fixating upon possibilities, whether you will be successful or not, whether you will find the perfect spouse or not, whether you'll make the grade or you'll make it through the rest of this day, rejoice in the Lord always. And again I say, rejoice. And let your hearts be revived this morning, even as we bear one another in love, even as we revive our concerns for those who are next to us in the pew, our neighbors, those who we're face to face with. Rejoice in the Lord. And again I say, rejoice. In the name of the Father, and of the Son, and of the Holy Spirit. Amen.